This is the Aerospeed Chronograph Pro program tutorial from Summit Peak Technologies. The first tab is for help on using the program, which you can refer to back for reference. The next tab allows you to set the wind speed, which you can move the windsock up and down to set the wind speed, and you can move the windsock to do a headwind, a crosswind, or tailwind, or you can just set approximate speeds from these buttons, and it just has to be approximate, just a guess. Then the temperature is the same, it just needs to be approximate, but if you're shooting indoors, maybe around 70. If you're shooting outdoors, just try to guess at what the temperature is within the nearest 10 degrees is just fine. Then you can set the distance that you're shooting, just to the nearest yard is okay. Or you can shoot at common distances. And to shoot, on the Shoot tab, it gives you various settings, such as you can change to metric units. And then whenever you go back to, say, your temperature, it'll be in degrees Celsius instead of Fahrenheit. And we'll just use US units for the tutorial. And then you can set the delay. This will be the time it takes for you to hit the start button and then put the phone in your pocket, draw back, knock your arrow, draw back, aim, and get ready to shoot after you hear the signal. So you need to set that. Sometimes I need 15 seconds to be able to do that. So I usually set it for 15. For the demo here, I'll just set it for, say, 4 seconds. If someone is holding the phone for you, they can set it for 4 seconds. That way you can hear the alarm, but you don't have to wait. The duration is the time it takes for the recording. Usually you set that for 2, unless I'm shooting really long distance, like 100 yards. I might set it for 3 or 4 seconds. This is the time the recording time needs to be from the time you hear the signal. Then you need time to release your arrow, and if you're a little slow on your release, you might need to use larger numbers. And then it's also the time it takes for the arrow to travel to the target, and then for the sound to travel from the target back to your phone. So at 100 yards, at say a 300 foot per second bow, that arrow is going to take a full second to travel to the target, and the sound is going to take probably a third of a second to travel back. So there's no way you can do that with a 1, and even a 2 is going to be a challenge to be able to release that arrow in time for the sound to come back. So I would say maybe hit 3 or 4 for really long distance shots. And then this arrows is advanced settings for arrows, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So we'll go ahead and press start and take a shot, just a simulated shot. Okay, this will be the sound of your bow, then it will detect your arrow sound and automatically detect those, and then report the average speed of your arrow for that shooting distance. Now, if you picked the wrong distance, you can always go back and say, oh, I really shot this at 30. You can go back and change it. You can come back to shoot and hit recalc, and then it will say, oh, your arrow was actually 268 because you shot it at 30 yards instead of 20. And you can replay the sound at any time, just to make sure that there wasn't other background noise going on that caused you to miss the shot, or made it difficult for the program to detect the arrow sound or the bow sound. Okay, now that we've made this shot, we may want to store it. So to do that, we need to set up an arrow. And this allows you to get more detailed information about the flight of the arrow along the entire flight path. So we can't select an arrow now because we haven't set one up. So we have to go to the Arrows tab and click the plus, and you can add as many arrows as you like. For example, if you have a 400 grain arrow, and then you have a 450 grain arrow. And you can also change the names of these arrows to be more descriptive. And then you'll see up here a tab for each arrow name, which you can go and select. You can see shots and speeds, but they don't have any meaning until we actually save some shots. So to save a shot, we go back to the Shoot tab, and once you select which arrow you want to shoot with, that you're shooting with, say it's the first arrow, it's the 400 grain, then you see the Save button here. This allows us to save this shot for that arrow. So we'll save it. Now we can go back to the Arrows tab and see that that shot now is saved. It's 30 yards, and it was this time and this average velocity. And now we can go to the Speeds tab and see that we've got our initial velocity is 268, but we can't really calculate a drag or kinetic energy for other distances because we only have one distance. So we need to shoot from different distances to get the velocity and kinetic energy of your arrow downrange. So we'll take another shot, say at 20 yards. Go to the Shot tab and start. Alright, and now we'll save this shot. And now whenever we go to the arrows, you can see that we've got a 30-yard shot and a 20-yard shot. Now, if I didn't like one of these, I could delete them. I can click the distance and sort by distance. That way it makes it easier to see things. And we can see that our speed was a little bit slower at 20 yards than it was at 30. And that's just because I just simulated the sound of a bow and arrow with... I didn't actually shoot a real bow and arrow for this demonstration. So I'm just going to artificially change these. So I'm going to say that this is 280, and I can leave this at 268. And this will simulate a flu arrow. It means it really slows down fast between 20 and 30 yards. So it's not going to be too realistic for a real arrow. But this will just give us an idea. If we go to the speeds now for this arrow, we can see that upon release what the velocity was, what it was at 20, at 30, at 40, and 50. It tries to extrapolate out, even out to 100 yards. So that the way this table works is each row is a certain distance. So at 0, that's right at where when you release your bow, then the velocity of the arrow it estimates at 280 feet per second, and it has this drag or deceleration, and then it has this kinetic energy, and at that kinetic energy it could take down size of game such as a Cape buffalo or a grizzly, something that are very large. Then at 20 yards the arrow speed has slowed down considerably, and now it's only 64 foot-pounds, and it's good enough for an elk, and or large game. And then for medium game, it's whenever your arrow slows down to about 200 feet per second. That's good enough for deer, not good enough for elk. And then as it gets out to 80 yards or 100 yards, your kinetic energy falls so far that you should probably only be hunting small game with this. And of course you can go back and you can delete an arrow or or you can edit the shots and delete the shots by hitting these X's. If you have several shots at the same distance, it's okay, the program just averages those together, so it's actually more accurate. You don't have to manually delete everything but one shot. You can have as many shots as you like, and if you take shots clear out to your comfortable shooting range, it might be 60 yards or might be 80 yards or 100 yards, and put all those shots in there, you'll get far more accurate results than just with 2 arrows. And then you can go to the list and you can compare the different arrows and see what the initial velocity is. A heavier arrow is going to have a smaller initial velocity on release, and the drag is a function of the cross-sectional area of the arrow, and your fletching, and there's in the wind speed, and there's a lot of variables that go into that. But if you are able to shoot your arrows in similar weather conditions, similar wind conditions, then you'll get a good idea of your arrow performance by comparing the drag coefficients and things. So that pretty much covers all of the features of the program. And this concludes the Aerospeed Chronograph Pro program tutorial.